Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you'll know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shout out to everybody. This is me, your host, Preacher Moss, on the Shout Out to SOS Live. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We've had some great comments over the last couple of weeks, and I really wanted to take a moment to thank people for that. Today's show, if you will, is a bit of an interesting show because I'm going to be revisiting something I had been talking about earlier. And when I say earlier, I really had this idea about talking about the idea of parents. I had a show, Who Protects Our Parents, Our Teachers, and Our Children. And this is pretty apropos because we're here and now we're at that stage where kids are having to go back to school. So today's topic is parents, teachers, students, and COVID-19. It is interesting because we have a situation scenario whereby people have really long gone through extraordinary lengths to have dividing lines, if you will. They have lines of, I want to say, dissemination, if you will. They talk about parents, they talk about teachers, they talk about students, they talk about COVID-19, but you have to understand that parents, students, and teachers are all in the same boat because they're human beings. That's number one. Number two, they all are servants. When I say servants, it means that they're part of a different type of ecosystem, if you will. Parents, teachers, students, it's all of a learning cycle. And I think there's been something that's been lost in the last couple of months in the lead up to this, going back all the way to when schools actually went back to online distance learning. And I'm not a big fan of online distance learning, but I understand that it has a purpose. When I say it has a purpose, it means in this particular time, it was set up and designed whereby, for lack of a better word, you are protecting human life. You are protecting human life and you are promoting the idea of human quality of life. Now, this is not really a popular idea with some folks because a lot of times when you're talking about the summer, if you will, the idea that the summer is over, kids go back to school, parents go back to work, that has been disrupted. We're in a totally different geographic location this way. This is a totally different zip code, if you will. And when I say a totally different zip code, you are now finding that parents and teachers have some of the same concerns about their health and that of the health of the children that they raise and the health of the children that they teach. The strategy has been laid out, and I won't say by who, but the strategy has been laid out whereby you now have to choose between the importance of your ability as a parent to provide and your ability of a teacher to teach. Totally blurring the line that you have teachers that are parents and parents who are teachers. And then the scope of things under the backdrop is protecting young lives against COVID-19. Now, I'm going to break this down. If anybody wants to do their own homework, and I do encourage you to do your homework, just don't take it from me. Look at the statement that was sent out by the CDC, if you will, brothers and sisters. The CDC sent out a very short, curt argument about why kids need to go to school. And I'm going to say something. When I went to this space, I went with a very, very open mind. When I say open mind, it means that I wasn't going to look for things that they will pick on disadvantaged children, things like I wasn't going to do that. In fact, and let me give a shout out to Sister Ree. What's going on, Ree? I hope you're feeling well. Thank you for checking into the show. Appreciate you. The idea of the CDC was to give an impression or a compelling argument as to why kids need to go back to school. That compelling argument was devoid of input from parents, devoid of input from teachers, and children don't have a voice in these things. The things that they leaned on were, of course, the psychological and mental aspects of children going to school, being able to have social interaction. I get that. The idea of being able to provide food, nutrition. I get that. The idea that it had certain about to do with being able to have physical outlet for education, physical outlet for physical need. I get that. One of the things, though, and I told you I wasn't looking for it, was the implication that the need to go back to school was largely built upon the need that disadvantaged minorities would be disadvantaged, if you will, if schools were not open. Now, this goes back to something that I used to argue for, and I still argue for. It's called the digital divide. Years ago, when I say years ago, it's got to be at least 10 years ago, I was talking about the idea of the digital divide. The digital divide, I felt, was the thing that was going to separate our children, disadvantaged children, from being opportunities, or disadvantaged children from being stuck in a rut with the same lousy opportunities they've been having for the last couple of years. The same ones that their parents were dealing with. And the digital divide had to do with access to technology. What has happened now is we find that the idea of all these things of STEM, talk about STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, all those things are all of a sudden in a flux because they are not even able to be provided at the most basic levels. And I say this because you still have close to potentially millions of children, if you went to online right now, who would not be able to access online. They give a lot of statistics about kids having virtual dropouts and these little catchy terms. But the thing that really resonated with me, and the thing that bothered me the most, is now you have created a civil war between parents and teachers. Let me say that. A civil war between parents and teachers. And in that war, the kids lose. Why do I say the kids lose? Because no one is actually looking at the potential harm, the potential welfare of children. One thing that the CDC went far and above was they say that the infection rate is far lower than children and who are younger. Listen to what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. That the infection rate for the children is lower. Somehow the infection rate is being conceived as it's acceptable. They didn't say infection rate. They said it's basically an acceptable amount of infection that the kids are going to have. But it's not like the flu. It's not like the common cold. Because we know about the flu. We know about the common cold. We don't know jack about COVID-19. However, we still have a scenario where there's a very robust argument about sending kids back to school because somehow it's acceptable that if they get COVID-19, it won't be so bad. It may not be a problem. Well, I got news for you. COVID-19 rates are rising for children. Here's the other thing. It reiterates the fact that we don't know anything about COVID-19. I would say we're no closer to a cure for COVID-19 than when we were back in January. Why do I say that? Because we continue to see something that we are not willing to address, which is behavior. You see, when you send children to school, it is not only about them getting education, it's about learning behavior. You cannot help a young child unlearn behavior they haven't learned in the first place. Brothers and sisters, that's criminal. That is an abomination of moral and social law. You send these kids to school on a hunch. Now, if you send the kids to school on a hunch saying their infection rates are not so bad, you have not eliminated infection rates. Well, that means that the infection rate for teachers better be low when they come in. Otherwise, there's a no-go. And that no-go is more so about people being exposed in terms of a readiness plan and clarity for these kids to get an education. This could have happened anywhere. This could have happened anywhere. Hear what I'm saying? COVID was an inconvenient truth, in the words of Al Gore. A very inconvenient truth. The reality is, teachers and parents find themselves in a paradigm they've never been before because every moment and minute that you wait, it affects the ability to teach children. It amazes me that colleges colleges, if you will, who deal with all kinds of different problems, tuition, Colleges were able, particularly University of California, were able to say, listen, we're going to make a blanket statement. We're not going to do anything this semester in terms of in-person teaching. Everything's going to be online. That's colleges. But for the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school, which incidentally, hear me, are free schools, all of a sudden do not have any kind of plan of how to deliver education to the students. You should have had education plans. And I'm not talking about the teachers. I'm not talking about the students or the parents. Because I'm going to tell you what the conundrum is with the parents. And let's be fair. Parents, I love you, and you want your kids to go to good schools. But that 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock is babysitting time. And you can't get a babysitter to put in 8 hours, not the same as a teacher. Not the same as the bus driver that has a net on her head and slams mashed potatoes on the tray and goes, have a good day. Parents, you don't want to say it, the rush back to school, that's about you. That is about you. And sending your kids to school, you know the infection rate. You know the probability that they can come home with infection. But I understand. You can't stay home and raise your kids unless you're a teacher. You can't stay home and help them on the computer. You've got to find health care. Well, if you look around the rest of the world, there were other places that figured out, you know what? We're going to pay a part of your salary so you can be at home and you can be safe. One here in the United States, you got $1,200. In Canada, they covered people. They gave them stipends. UK, same thing. Sweden, UK, same thing. Switzerland, same thing. Only here in America are we having a situation where parents have to choose between the safety of my child and the ability to effectively provide for my child. And nobody, brothers and sisters, nobody should have to figure out that on their own. Now, the thing that's going to come, and this is very serious, the thing that's going to come, and the thing that I read from the CDC report, and you have people, cheering the parents, cheering the teachers, come to work. It should be like, lose your life. Nobody wants to make that cheer. The reality is something that I don't want us to miss, and I don't want to be lost on some small nuance. The reality is we don't know about COVID-19. And while they talk about kids are liable to recover from COVID-19, the missing caveat is, at what quality of life will these kids recover? Let me give you a prime example. There was a young woman, I think she was from North Carolina. She worked as a paralegal. She got corona. She survived. Alhamdulillah. But let's talk about her quality of life. She survived, but she had to have a double lung replacement. You hear what I'm saying? A double lung replacement as a result of the scarring from COVID-19 on her lungs. Let me frame this. She had to get lungs from somebody else and have them put in her body. And she has a year-long rehab. Now, this is a woman who used to run, do 5K races, do charity. She worked with pets. She was effective. And she was young at 28 years old. Someone even more important, a young man who's a rapper from the group Ghetto Boys. The group Ghetto Boys. My mind's playing tricks on me. Scarface. Here's a brother. When he talked about getting COVID, look at his recovery. He got double pneumonia and suffered renal failure. Let me say it again. Double pneumonia, renal failure. He was healthy before COVID. Now he has to do dialysis. Now ask your question, is it really worth sending your children in and knowing the facts? And the facts are, honestly and humbly, you don't know what this disease can do. So yeah, you do send a child into school and maybe they get COVID and they recover. But maybe that child, when they get over, they find out they're sterile. Remember you used to have, you had diseases back there, the mumps and the chickenpox that could leave you sterile. Maybe that's something that can happen to these kids. Maybe something is developmentally that we're not aware of that could happen. That in and of itself says that we just can't take the risk. The economy is going to be the economy. The economy is in a crapper right now. If you want people to really do right by the economy, doggone it, tell people to wear a mask. Tell them to stop. College students, stop going to the bars with no mask. And all you people talking about, I have a right, I have a freedom that I wear my mask. Well, damn it, tell you what, you don't want to wear your mask? You and your kids go somewhere and open a school. You and your kids go and open a school. Get yourself a teacher certification, and we'll send all the kids, all the parents who think that their kids go, we're going to send them to you. And it's pretty easy to get a teacher certification right now because, damn it, nobody wants to teach, nobody can teach because it's going to be online. That's my point. My point is, if you're not going to have a change about behavior, stop putting people in harm's way. Betsy Devos, I don't know you. I've never met you, but your policies are horrible. They are just one step above the actual devil's work. You hear me, lady? The devil's work. And if you want to keep sending kids in harm's way, you're going to get harm back because parents are not going to take it. Parents will spend their last dollar and their last breath protecting their kids. And I'm telling you something. You don't want to run up on people trying to protect their children because you want to protect them. Half the people are talking about this argument about sending kids back to school. Their kids are graduated. Betsy Devos doesn't have any kids in public school. Donald Trump, I don't even know if his kid even goes to school. I don't see him sending his kid back to school. Has anyone checked? Has Barron been registered to go to school for in person? Fine. If he is, I'll give you $100. Somebody take a picture of him on the first day of school and make sure Donald Trump is walking him into school on the first day, him and Milana. Then I might feel a little bit more secure. But until that time, brothers and sisters, whatever you got to do, yell, scream, stomp, kick, protect your children. The people who are telling you these things are not honest people. They're trying to save their jobs. When I say they're trying to save their jobs, it means that they realize they can't afford to be wrong. Because in this administration, being wrong or on the wrong side of wrong can be a career decision. You may not ever recover from it. And while I understand the pressure to get kids back to school, listen, let me tell you something. Before we go any further, I was a teacher. I was an educator. Let me tell you some of the emotions that educators, particularly in the city, have when kids don't come to school. One, we worry about the welfare of the children. Why? Because life isn't fair. It's not fair for the parents, and sometimes it's not life is not fair for the students. Therefore, coming to school does provide a bit of a respite, and we want them to have that respite. But here's the thing that you should remember. I remember working in a school. We wanted the kids to be safe. We wanted to be their welfare to be blossoming. We wanted to be learning. But we taught in schools back in the day that were filled with asbestos. What do I mean by asbestos? Cancer-causing agents, asbestos. I'm 53. If somebody told me tomorrow, Preacher Moss, you have massive lung cancer, I wouldn't be surprised. You know why? Because I taught in schools that had nothing but asbestos, and it shortens lives. So you see the paradox here. As much as we want to protect kids, you got to look at the entire picture. So maybe you start school a little bit later. Maybe, okay, instead of the kids having summer off, you make sure they go to school for an extra 6 weeks. Maybe we might have to give up a couple of days on vacation. Maybe the spring break is going to be what it's going to be. But you have a fiduciary responsibility to take care of the kids. You see, the thing that the CDC gave you was an emotional response. And it's an emotional response because they want people to have an immediate call to action. That call to action is either you're with us or you're not with us. Not, are you thinking about what we're talking about? See, they gave you a side of an argument that made it seem like teachers, if you will, were essential personnel. No. Teachers are more than essential personnel. You know why? Because you're dealing with lives. And when you're more than essential personnel, You're dealing with young lives, young habits, young behaviors. I would hate to be the child that has to go to school and somehow go to school and years later catch COVID and find out that COVID has done some damage to my body because there was a rush, if you will, to show up to school to satisfy big business. I'm calling you out. Big business, big politics, and big lies. Now, if you really want me to go further, I can go further. Because the idea of educating children is an amana, it's a trust. It doesn't matter if the kids in kindergarten, preschool, parents trust the teacher with their children. And now you have a situation with COVID-19 where people are not talking about trusting the teachers with their children. They're talking about placing their children in school. And the idea of trust has gone completely out of the window. Nobody wants to talk about the responsibility. And then, and any other time, if there was a COVID, brothers and sisters, because I taught for years, if there was COVID, one of the scariest things is when a parent would send a kid to school and the child was noticeably still sick. Let me say this. Parents would send kids to school knowing that the child was still sick. And you would sit there as an educator worried about not just that child, but all the other children and your own personal health. You see, because that one act of sending that child to school, knowing that the child was not well or recovered, if I get sick, now I've let down an entire classroom. If that child stays home, the rest of the kids can teach. If I get sick, it causes a disruption in the ecosystem of the school, and they now have to get a substitute teacher for possibly 1 or 2 or 3 days, and the children are not getting the direct education that they need. Am I in favor of online education? No, I'm not. But considering the circumstances, do I favor it? Yes, because I'm not talking about education. We're not talking about the three R's: writing, reading, and arithmetic. I don't know why they say arithmetic. You're talking about sustainability. You see, because the kid that comes to school that doesn't know that they're sick, that doesn't know what a fever is, and I will guarantee you this, folks, the schools don't know. They can do everything they want to, but they don't know. Let me shout out Big Z. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, big brother. Hope all is well in Toledo. The issue of parents, teachers, and students lacking a cohesive thought about going to school or staying home from school is scary. Because in this whole scope, the debate, if you will, creates or it sets up a lot of friction. You have states and governors and leaders who refuse to say yay or nay. Let the school districts figure it out. If that was the case, then you should have done that way back when school was still in session. And people have been able to sit there and go, you know what? If A, then B. If we get to a point and the positive infection rate is too high, then we'll do this situation. But they did not do that. They sat back and they waited. My theory, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but my theory is they played to the conflict. And what's going to happen is, while everybody's trying to figure out who's right, who's wrong, who's going to school, who's not going to school, should we open school? Oh my God, somebody got sick. We got to close school again. Oh, there's a girl that took a picture of all the students in the hallway down in Georgia with no mask. She's suspended. Let's put her. It is the epitome of foolishness. Let me put my old grumpy black man mask on. If I send my child to school, is my child going to come back the same way I sent him? Question number one. Number two is, how effective can a teacher be if the teacher's sick? Number three, how effective can the teacher be if the teacher is scared? And number four, the children. You may not believe this. You may not believe this. You may believe this. but children know adult emotions. So the effectiveness of a child to learn all of a sudden is compromised because the adults don't have their acts together. So in this issue of parents, teachers, students, and arguments that go around and around on that, let me tell you something. The only person that's going to be right and the only person that's going to be undefeated, brothers and sisters, is going to be COVID. That's it for today. Appreciate you. Have an excellent day. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Preacher Moss. Thank you again. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout out show. Simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarifa Tar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifatar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.